Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a video and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Today, I am privileged to have someone who is an entrepreneur, a motivational speaker, and is doing some amazing things, Divyanshu Ganatra. Divyanshu, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ashutosh. It's a pleasure and honor to be here.
Thank you. Divyanshu is the founder of Adventure Beyond Barriers Foundation, which is committed to promoting inclusion and awareness about issues of disability. He's also the founder of Yellow Brick Road, a learning and development organization. He's a clinical psychologist, researcher, behavioral facilitator, self-made serial entrepreneur, and motivational speaker. He was India's first blind pilot, and he has been awarded several times, but he's also received a national award for the welfare of persons with disabilities. So Divyanshu, with such an amazing kind of a track record, what would you say are three key milestones in your career or your life?
The very first milestone or catalyst to change really was when I woke up blind. Mm-hmm. This happened when I was 19. So that was a huge milestone. And when I look back, that was one thing that really changed my life, of course, but for the better. And the second was, I think, amongst the many, psychology, completing my courses in psychology, getting my degree in psychology, working in that field, was the second milestone, because it really was something I wanted to do. I had to put in a lot of struggle to complete my course. Given that I'm the first blind student to pursue clinical psychology at master's level.
Right.
So there was that battle. And the third, I think, major milestone really was the day I had my first solo flight. I think that was another incredible moment.
Quite amazing.
So I think these three have been really big for me.
Terrific. So, before I come into, your two organizations, when you realized at 19 that there was a change taking place in your life, how did you feel and how did you accept it?
To be honest, Ashutosh was diagnosed with glaucoma at the age of 17. Yeah. And it was quite by chance that I figured that I had glaucoma, but I still could see perfectly well. I still could do everything. So I was in total denial. Mm-hmm. I really never believed that I would be going blind one day. Although I was told that you're sitting on a ticking time bomb and this can happen. Nobody can say when, but it can happen. Okay. You only realize you're blind when you wake up blind. You have your eyes open, but you can't see. That's the day the realization really hits you, because you don't have a choice anymore. You can try as much simulations, blindfolded, closing your eyes and walking, all of that you can try. It's not the same. Correct. So honestly, I think I never processed the fact that I was ever going to go blind until I went blind.
Incredible. So, Divyanshu, let's talk about your first venture, which is Yellow Brick Road, which is a learning and development organization. Right. Tell me about this venture.
So, Yellow Brick Road is not my first venture. I had multiple ventures before that. I was in IT and had a successful career in IT before that. Okay. IT is what I started off in.
Okay.
And then later moved to psychology, because we were doing AI and ML back then, 25 years ago. It wasn't known as AI ML back then, but we still were doing stuff around those lines to empower and enable using technology. Mm-hmm. And that's when I got interested in psychology, the human mind, human brain. And I said, that's what I want to pursue. So then I quit everything, went back to college, pursued my courses. And then 2006 is when I set up Yellow Brick Road. And what we do in Yellow Brick Road is essentially we work in positive psychology, emotional intelligence, and achievement motivation, because these are areas which I believe if more people find out about it, more people apply these skills to their lives, they wouldn't make themselves upset.
Mm.
What I'm saying is very conscious. They wouldn't make themselves upset because we make ourselves upset.
Mm-hmm.
But often we have been conditioned to believe that situations, events, people's behaviors, things outside of us is what makes us feel upset or makes us feel the way we do, which is completely untrue. Our emotions are 100% our own responsibility, and we cause our own emotions. We make our own emotions by the way we think. So
very interesting.
It kind of applied to my life, so that's what I like to share. I don't believe I teach anything, but I just share what has worked for me from scientific perspectives, of course.
Okay. And Divyanshu, you speak about leading with emotional intelligence.
Yes.
Help me understand this and give me an example.
What really drives us, what motivates us, is really our emotions. And as human beings, if we're driven by emotions, we're guided by our emotions, our decision making, our choices, everything is determined by how we feel. Then as leaders, it's imperative that we really become conscious of our emotions. We've been conditioned to believe that rationality is of prime importance, of critical importance. But while logic and rationality has its place, what drives these decisions is emotion, but we never pay attention to it. We don't realize what we are going through as emotions. We don't know, we're not aware of our emotions. So that's the first step. Being aware, being able to label our emotions, being able to regulate and manage our emotions, because that then becomes the founding block of what kind of a leader you will be, how you will deal with stress, how you deal with pressures, how you deal with people and relationships. And to me, that's the most critical element of a leader, to be able to be aware of their emotions, to regulate and be resilient.
So tell me, without giving any names, can you give me an example of how people have reacted?
Take COVID for that matter. So I'll give you an example from the gender perspective because it's easier to understand. Men and women are wired differently in the brain, and women have more empathy. And if you and they have more empathy because they're more aware of their emotions. They use their emotions, and they use both sides, the linguistic as well as their emotional sides. So. Historically, if you see, even in the worst of economic downturns, companies led by women have tended to do better.
Okay.
They have been more resilient. They have been able to adapt better. And data suggests that women leaders are way better than men leaders definitely under stressful situations. And that's simply because they're able to use emotional intelligence better than men.
Okay.
Because as men, we've been told, don't show your emotions or don't be emotional, or only aggression and anger is what is okay for a man. But no other emotion, the softer, tender, the other relationship bit of emotional intelligence, we've been conditioned out of it.
Okay.
So if you look at data, women leaders have tended to do better simply because of only one parameter, which is emotional intelligence.
Correct.
And now that's a skill that can be learned. It's not that we simply because we're wired differently, now that's an excuse. We can learn emotional intelligence no matter what our age. Our brain is very malleable. Our brain is like a sponge. It can learn new skills no matter what your age.
Correct. Very interesting.
So it's just about applying these skills to your own life, being consciously applying it for a while, then it becomes second nature.
Okay. So, Divyanshu, let's now talk about the other venture, which is Adventure Beyond Barriers Foundation, where you say that it is committed to promoting inclusion and awareness about issues of disability. Tell me about what you do in this foundation.
Well, interestingly, it is a fallout of my work in Yellow Brick Road, because we again believe in how do you change beliefs, how do you change mindsets,
Right.
how do you build, how do you bring about change in this world, and for me, my community of persons with disability are disproportionately impacted than the most marginalized communities around the world.
Correct.
Of 1.3 billion people around the world. So the big challenge for this community is not really the disability, but the stigma, the social misperceptions. These are the bigger challenges, attitudinal barriers. Now, how do you change these attitudinal barriers? Is through empathy, through dialogue. And what we believe is that there's no better way to build empathy. There's no better way to build dialogue and conversations and foster friendships than through play. Sport has the power to really unite people. It has the power to give hope, inspire, and this is what Nelson Mandela did to unite an entire country.
Correct. Correct.
So we just apply the same principles of sport, empathy, dialogue, to bring about social change, where we get people with and without disability to come and play together, to do stuff that the world has said is impossible, to do outdoor extreme adventure sports, from summiting Everest and Kilimanjaro to the Himalayas, and cycling to the top of the world, or
Correct.
scuba diving to the depths of the ocean, or flying, or marathons. And we work with cross disability, and every person with disability is paired alongside an ally or ally, and from who are non-disabled, and they just play together. They just go climb a mountain together. They cycle together, but in the process, they learn so much about each other.
Correct.
In the process, they have to challenge their own beliefs that they came in with, because they come in saying, how can somebody who is an amputee or blind go climb a mountain, or a quadriplegic go do scuba diving? And they're like, this is not possible. And we're like, well, this is how you go about doing it. We train them, we teach them, and they do it. At the end of the day, now they have experienced it for themselves that this is possible.
Wonderful.
And one of the things about our brain is that we can't hold paradoxical beliefs at the same time. It's very hard to.
Very interesting. So again, Divyanshu, over the years, how have you seen in our country a change in diversity and inclusion? You must have seen, because I've seen a very huge change that, and I see it, but perceive it.
Right.
What are your views?
It's changing slowly, Ashutosh.
Okay.
Not at the pace at which I would want it to be, because less than 1% of corporate India have persons with disability.
Okay.
And that's abysmal.
I agree with you.
Abysmal. Given that we have 200 million people with disability in this country. So while I'm a very restless soul, I like to.
Correct. And why shouldn't you? Absolutely.
But at the same time, I'm hopeful. Things are changing. There is more dialogue. There's more policies. We have enough policies. We need it to be followed in the spirit of things.
Okay.
We have enough legislation, but we don't have. We don't follow it. And if we do it in the right spirit, I'm hopeful that I will see a lot of change in my lifetime. That's the hope. But we have a long way to go, Ashutosh. To be honest, we have a very.
Tell me, what do you think should be done to accelerate the change?
Simple. To me, I really believe empathy and dialogue is fundamental. Visibility is fundamental. So if you look at India especially, you don't see people with disability around us. You never went to school with somebody with disability. You never go to workspaces where there are people with disability. You don't see them in cinema houses, parks, nowhere.
Right.
And then that leads to people believing that, hey, they don't exist. And the only ones you see are at the signal or in very poor light. Whereas there are millions of us, but then where are they? That's the question, right? And they're trapped in their own homes. While you experienced lockdown for 2 months, people with disability have been locked down for all their lives.
Correct.
And 50% of children with disability are not even introduced to the world.
Wow.
Because of the stigma. Because either the mother is blamed or the parents are blamed, saying you must have sinned. Especially the mother is blamed that you must have sinned in your past life. This is karma.
That's terrible.
Or who will marry your siblings if they find out there is a person with disability in the house? So they never introduce them. And they're locked inside their own homes.
Very well said.
And the other half, who may be able to go out and all of that, but then our infrastructure is completely inaccessible. I may have admission to the best university, but if I am a wheelchair user, how do I get to that university? And not everybody is privileged. 80% of people with disability come from extremely poor backgrounds.
Correct.
So it's, we can't say, it's like sitting in ivory tower saying, yes, we have opened our universities to people with disability. Fantastic. But we can't get there.
Correct. Well said. Well said. No, you're very well said. But, a follow-up question to you then, Divyanshu, will be that, this is the age now of the millennials and the Gen Zs.
Yes.
And I have found that people of that age group, the early 30s, early 20s,
yes,
are people who will change this country, and they're far more adjustable, willing to understand to all kinds of challenges. What is your impression of the reaction of millennials and the Gen Zs to people with disabilities?
I couldn't resonate more, Ashutosh. That's the hope. They're the hope.
Correct.
They're the biggest hope, and I'm pinning everything on them. It's very unfortunate that we haven't left a better world for them.
Yeah,
and then we are expecting them to clean up after us.
Yeah.
But I still have hope in them because they do have a lot of empathy.
Correct.
They're open to experiences. And they're flexible in their mindsets, in their approach. And I do go out and talk to a lot of children in schools. And when I speak to children, their minds are malleable. They're still filled with awe and curiosity. And my hope is that they will be better leaders, and hopefully they will undo all the wrongs we have done.
Correct. In fact, I've said this often, that, the millennials and the Gen Zs, my children and people younger than them, will not just correct all the damages that we are leaving behind in the world, but will probably improve everything in this world because of the incredible empathy.
Absolutely.
Isn't it?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, Divyanshu, let me move to a few questions for you personally. For someone who has achieved so much, from tandem cycling to flying, solo flights, etc. Where do you draw your inspiration from?
I'm driven by. I'm really motivated by challenges.
Okay.
And I'm intensely curious, and I like to solve problems. So if there's a problem, I like to solve it.
Okay.
I like to be part of the solution, and I thrive on it. And I really believe that I'm driven by what I absolutely love. What drives me is passion. What drives me is what I love to do. If that's not something I want to do, I ask this question often to myself: Is this what you are doing worth dying for? Will you die for this? And if the answer is no, then that's not worth doing.
Okay.
So that brings a lot of clarity that, okay, if I'm willing to die for this, that's how important it is for me.
Okay. But what makes you push yourself in such extreme sports like solo flying?
Flying is actually very safe, Ashutosh. If aircrafts are really, really safe. It's again how we process that. Most accidents happen on ground. Most aircraft accidents happen on ground. They don't happen in air. Secondly, you're way more at risk driving a car on Indian roads than flying.
Yes.
So if you reassess the risk, I'm actually taking lesser risk.
Okay. Well said. Well said.
And I trust my team. See, even if I'm flying solo, it's a misnomer because there's a whole team looking out after everybody.
Okay.
Whether I'm blind or sighted, that wouldn't matter. There's a whole team looking out for a pilot.
Yes.
While I have the best seat in the house, I trust my team to look out for me. They trust me to not do something stupid.
Okay.
They trust me to also follow their instructions, and so it's really safe. And like everything, there are risks,
of course.
But then you learn, you train, you think of situations, you practice, you come up with contingencies, and then you go out there believing in yourself.
Fantastic. And therefore, a follow-up question to you on that note is that, you're doing so many different things. What does success mean to Divyanshu?
Contentment. If I sleep contented at night, knowing I have fully given of myself, I've given 100%, I have given my best. Doesn't matter whether I've failed in it. I celebrate failure just as much.
Okay.
And in fact, I feel we, as a society, we need to celebrate failures more.
Correct.
We have a very lopsided thing where we only celebrate successes. But we need to celebrate failures more. There's more to learn in failures. And for me, as long as I have put in my effort, my 100%, heart and soul in it, I sleep contented. That's success for me.
That's such a fascinating answer, because that was going to be my next question to you. It was on failure. And I've often said this, and I've got a new book coming out in March on failure. I've said that, in Asia, particularly in India, parents don't teach children it's okay to fail.
Absolutely.
Right? So my question to you is that what has been some of your biggest learnings from some of your biggest mistakes?
Most important is I've been very close to death multiple times, Ashutosh. I've been declared dead once in '98. And one of the things that really has been my greatest learning on that deathbed, when doctors said, like, I knew I was dying. It's not the big things that you regret or miss, or, I didn't go to that trip or vacation, if I didn't buy this car, or none of that comes to haunt you. It's the small things. It's the telephone call you did make. It's the I love yous you didn't say. It's the apologies you didn't make. It's those small things that really come to haunt you.
Very interesting.
And to me, that has been the biggest learning. Relationships, living life to the fullest in the moment. Completely in the moment. That if I was to drop dead the next moment, I will not regret anything right now. I'll really die happy, because there's not a single phone call I need to make.
Fantastic. And Divyanshu, my last question to you now is that what would you say is the most outrageous thing that you have done?
I don't know. I think I don't really know.
I don't ask this for many questions, but when I was reading about you, I was so fascinated.
How do you define outrageous? What does outrageous mean to you?
Putting yourself at risk, doing things which, is there something which is, you're really risking your life. What is something that you've done? Or there's nothing like that?
Honestly, most people would think flying or climbing to the top of the highest mountain in the world.
Correct.
These are outrageous things. But to us, we really look at it very differently. There is no bravado in there. If there is bravado, you're sure to die.
I agree.
We in fact are very risk averse.
Absolutely.
It is training, it is knowing, it is constant safety and equipment and being cautious, being mindful, that we take every step. So while the world would look at extreme adventure sport as something extremely outrageous, it's not really so.
Okay.
So it's
I know,
interesting.
I appreciate what you're saying. I mean, I guess my definition of outrageous is I'm 64-year-old, and therefore when I think something which is of such intensity, there are people who are doing it. So I just thought it could be, you're risking yourself, but maybe I used to do the same thing 30 years ago, so.
Right. And we really look at risk assessment very differently.
Correct.
Very differently. And you should see that before I step into any adventure sport or extreme sport, the amount of risk evaluation we do, the amount of time that goes into assessing and preparing contingencies. Like even when we went to Kilimanjaro, we had even a helicopter for rescue on standby. And we actually did have to rescue somebody from the top of the mountain. But that was because we had all those contingencies in place.
Correct.
Before we even took one step. So if the risk evaluation plan is not foolproof or not safe enough, we don't even do it. We don't attempt it.
Fantastic.
But yes, flying, cycling, climbing, all of them are quote unquote outrageous things in one way, because they really push you to the limits.
Correct.
They make you push the envelope. They redefine what's possible.
Well said.
Because as a blind pilot, we're really redefining what's possible. We're challenging beliefs and notions and changing the norm. Because for me, it's not enough to be a pilot for myself. What the dream I have is to see hundreds of blind people flying every day, and that becoming the norm.
Correct.
That's how you change the world. So for me, that would be outrageous when tomorrow I step into an Indigo or SpiceJet, and the pilot comes on the PA system and says, "Push back, relax. I'm going to be we're going to be cruising at 32,000 feet. By the way, I'm blind, but that's okay. I can hear well."
Well said. Well said.
So that
agree.
That's the outrageous world. That's I like to shock people. Yeah.
Well done. So Divyanshu, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you, Ashutosh.
I just wish you lots of luck, and I sincerely hope I get an opportunity to fly in an Indigo with a pilot who you've justified.
That would be the world I dream of. And Ashutosh, just wanted to make one request through this medium to all the leaders and corporate people, or anybody, just about anybody who's watching this, to come and experience just one day with us. It doesn't matter if you're 70-year-old, if you have no arms, if you're a cancer survivor, it doesn't matter.
Correct.
Just come and spend one day. And then I believe that every one of you can be ambassadors of change and
I agree.
Make this world more inclusive and a better place.
So your message will go to everybody, but it has certainly come to me, and I will make a special effort to come and spend one day.
That'd be amazing. Thank you, Ashutosh.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.